Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. This is the weekly news wrap up for Friday, May 24th, 2019. The WNW 385 something broke big last night. Donald Trump kicked in the hoax investigation, the Russian collusion hoax investigation, where he said, we're going to get to the bottom of this. William Barr has said there was spying. But I want to just bring up this really quick. This is just from his Twitter account, which I tell you why you should come on. Their big news is being broken. And this is a big deal today at the request and recommendation of the Attorney General of the United States, that's William Barr. President Donald J. Trump directed the intelligence community to quickly and fully cooperate with the Attorney General's investigation into the surveillance activities during the 2016 presidential election. Surveillance activities during the 2016 presidential election. The Attorney General has also been delegated full and complete authority to declassify information pertaining to this investigation. It's supposed to be done properly. Of course, he says that in the tweet. And do you think Donald Trump has kicked this investigation into high gear in part because of the day he had? I mean, he had Nancy Pelosi before a big meeting, talk about how, he's not above the law, and talked about impeachment, inferred impeachment, and said she was praying for him and hoped his family would do an intervention on him. That's outrageous. And then says, let's go in and have a meeting about infrastructure and cut a deal. No. And Donald Trump said, no deal. And he didn't rant and rave. And then later she came out and said, he was crazy. That's what she said. He needed an intervention, that he was, unhinged. There was a room full of people. Hey, Nancy, everybody knows you're lying. Donald Trump was calm. He said, listen, you can't be doing this. Trump holds all the cards, which is why he's kicking this investigation into high gear in cooperation to find out what happened and how this hoax, which that's what it is, this phony counterintelligence scam that was started by John Brennan, we're going to find out, and Strzok and Page and all these people, and also, find out, where it started and who was involved in it. And, this is why the Democrats are, and particularly Nancy Pelosi, saying all these crazy things. They know they don't have anything. They're going to hang on to the con. Now we're going to try to get his tax records, and, he's obstructed justice, and they stopped with the collusion. So he's obstructed a crime that didn't happen. So he's crazy. But this is why they're so crazy. They're going after, they're taking him to court for his taxes. They're going after things that are outrageously way out of bounds and out of scope and abuse of power by Congress. They're supposed to really be looking after the money they have appropriated, not what Donald Trump did in the 1990s. Just outrageous, really, really outrageous. But here's why they're so outrageous, talking about impeachment, and they have to get rid of him. I mean, Representative Green said the only we're going to beat Trump was, by impeaching him. He brought this up at an impromptu press conference today, incidentally. And before I go on to the press conference, I want to just talk about what Jim Jordan said as to explaining, to try to put two and two together. Why are the Democrats so unhinged? Why is Nancy Pelosi telling the obvious lies about the president, ranting and raving and being unhinged when he had a room full of witnesses saying it didn't happen? I mean, why are they so? Why is she asking and painting him some unstable whack job, saying that his family should do an intervention? She's praying for him. Yeah, because they know the jig is about to be up. And according to Jim Jordan, Representative Jim Jordan, the House Dems are nervous about the real investigation. We're back to Barr here. Jordan quoted A.G. Barr on Fox. Bill Barr said he's said spying did occur. So the president, his campaign, his transition team, at the beginning of his administration, spied on. He said two terms that should frighten every one of your viewers, every single American. He used the term unauthorized surveillance and political surveillance. Now, let's talk about unauthorized surveillance. Well, is that like the FISA stuff? No, that's fraudulently authorized surveillance. People should hang for that. Did they get some information from that? Maybe, probably. But the lion's share of the information, the real reason why they came up with that, according to Janda and others, is a smokescreen to cover up Operation Hammer. Now, a lot of people have been spelling it Hammer, but it's really Hamer. And it was in the whistleblower, the guy that came up with this spying, which was for foreign use And he blew the whistle because it got turned into domestic use by Clapper and Brennan and Barack Obama. And that's where the real information came from to spy on Donald Trump and his transition team and his Donald Trump elect and Donald Trump, the newly installed president. And this from Brennan and Clapper and Obama before he left office was all set up. And this is going to be some of the stuff declassified. Folks, this is huge. And Donald Trump knows that it is huge. And this is the reason why they're going for the tax returns and calling them crazy and saying that, Bill Barr is his personal henchman, attorney. This is the crazy things coming out of the Democrats. They haven't gotten a single thing done. No legislation for DACA, no legislation for the crisis at the border that the Democrats say there's not a crisis. They just had the acting DHS administrator in front of Congress saying this is untenable. You should do something about this. Our southern border is being absolutely pummeled and invaded. And this is why there's estimates on the wall. I mean, Bloomberg put out, there's only 1.5 miles of wall built. Trump says it's close to 100. So 100 miles done in strategic locations. But this is why the Democrats are so crazy, because of the real investigation and the real declassification and the real uncovering and the real arrests and prosecutions. And I want to bring this up for treason. And now Trump gave an impromptu press conference and he said, Nancy Pelosi, she's kind of lost it. She's really not the same. She's not the same because she may be part of this. I mean, listen, this is so much bigger. I mean, I told you about the Long Beach port that was in the hands of the Chinese, and this is California we're talking about. Nancy Pelosi land out there, Dianne Feinstein land out there. She had a Chinese national as a driver. So I mean, the amount of treason coming from the Democrats, particularly in California, could be vast. Maybe that's why Nancy Pelosi is unhinged. Dianne Feinstein's been pretty quiet, especially after she, asked, a court nominee, I think his name is Cooper, about military tribunals and civilians, and he said, I can't talk about that. It could come up in front of my court. Trump was asked about these from a reporter, which I thought he had fair questions today. Again, saying, well, you talked about treason. Who has committed treason? He said, well, let me tell you, this is Trump, I'm paraphrasing. He said, I'm getting close to it, though. He said, there was treason. It was Strzok and Page, and he said, the reporter said, well, who might have caused the treason? He says, well, there's a lot of people involved. I mean, James Comey comes to mind, Andrew McCabe, the number 2 at the FBI, Lisa Strzok, who the attorney to Andrew McCabe, Lisa Page, Peter Strzok, the number 2 counterintelligence FBI agent, the one that led this phony counterintelligence investigation to try to frame Trump. He says, and a lot of other higher up people. And he says, between Strzok and Page, they were talking about the insurance policy. Now, these weren't the very top people, but they were people pretty high up in the food chain, which tells me that it was pretty common knowledge. Everybody knew about the insurance policy. And Trump said, talking about an insurance policy to remove a duly elected president from office, that's treason. Treason, he said twice. Treason. Now, Donald Trump is not going to sit in front of the press corps and holler out treason if he doesn't have damn good reason to say, and from his attorneys that, yep, yes, sir, that was treason, which is what I've been saying for a long time. This is treason. What Hillary Clinton did with that private server, treason. What they did with this phony investigation and knock out a duly elected president, treason. And so Trump brought that up in no uncertain terms, and the press was pretty much silent because they know about the insurance policy that they refused to comment on. They refused to cover. They refused the mainstream media, NBC, ABC, CBS, New York Times, Washington Post, maybe of late, maybe the New York Times, maybe the Washington Post of late because they're scared. But they refused to cover any of this for 2 years, but yet they covered the Russia collusion hoax and let you think that the president was some sort of spy. And they almost got us into a war with Russia. Thank goodness they didn't. Folks, this was pretty unbelievable. And even Sarah Sanders said, I don't know why that Nancy Pelosi knew that she wasn't going to negotiate in good faith, not when she stood out in front of the White House and accused the president of a crime and then walked in to do a meeting on infrastructure. I'll tell you what else happened. A good friend of mine who does finances, let's just say. He's a banker. He's sort of a banker. And he says, I'll tell you one thing, if this debt ceiling, if this doesn't get cured, guess who's going to direct all the money that comes into the federal government? And if you guess Donald Trump and his administration, it falls to the executive branch. The House of Representatives will be neutered if they don't get a budget and don't extend the debt ceiling. Then that means that the president will be able to direct all money coming into the White House come September 30th at the end of the fiscal year. So they can drag this out all they want. I mean, the Democrats almost seem like they're willing to destabilize the country. They don't want to pass any legislation that'll stop this illegal immigration. That's what they want. They want to destabilize the country. They want all the illegal voters they can. They want the social rolls filled up to the hilt. They don't care about bankrupting the country. They don't have anything good for America other than selective abortion and abortion. The carnival of death of that. That is take away your gun rights, take away your First Amendment rights, raise your taxes, do away with border patrol, have open borders. I mean, this is the outrageous things they're all talking about. I mean, the Democrat Party has gone communist. And this is not hyperbole. I mean, I had Kevin Shipp on saying, well, look at the plagues in progressivism. It's the same as communism. The Democrats are communists. I mean, that's what it is. And so they don't want to do anything to fix anything. And they know this investigation is real. They know what they did. They know what the FBI did, the DOJ did, and some people in Congress. I mean, Maxine Waters knew about Obama's special database. I'm sure Nancy Pelosi did as well, and who knows how many other people knew about this. I mean, this is huge, folks, and it's coming to a head. And a lot of people are going to get arrested and thrown into jail. They're going to be prosecuted and thrown into jail. And, and then on top of that, we couldn't have a more awful time in terms of, the economy having the pin being stuck in the balloon. And one of these things is the China trade war. China says, and this to me tells me that's good. This is going to go on forever. China says trade talks can't continue unless U.S. addresses its wrong actions. In other words, you guys better knuckle under and drop those tariffs and let us do anything we want in terms of Huawei. And if it breaches your national security, we own you. And how dare you do anything? And we have money to fight this trade war. And we want Joe Biden to be president. This is China. I'm telling you that, I had one friend of mine write me and say, my prices are going up for aluminum and prices are going up. And, what do you do here? This should have never gotten this far. China is a totalitarian, one-party, a dictator installed for life. That's Xi Jinping. It is they offer social credit scoring, which if you get out of line, you don't get a car or an apartment. You have to live in a box down by the river. I mean, this is China. This is what they have now. There are no free speech laws. There are no human rights. There are no constitutional rights. You can't redress the government. You can't do anything. This is the 30-year anniversary of the Tank Man. Wonder whatever happened to him. Did you ever see any pictures of Tank Man? The guy stood in front of a red Chinese tank 30 years ago? Yeah, no. Nope. This is a totalitarian Chinese government. I mean, Google is helping them with their social scoring system. They all, the masters of the universe hate the Constitution. They hate the Bill of Rights. They hate the Declaration of Independence. They hate America. They want a top-down Chinese government, one party, one way to think rule, and if you step out of line, you end up as Pete Moss. And I say, this should have never happened. I mean, Huawei was installing, there's a national security issue according to the State Department and others, and the Commerce Department. They blacklisted them. There's all kinds of spyware and everything else in there, and this could be a national security threat. Probably is a national security threat. I mean, I think the trade war is on, full bore, full on, and I don't think it's going to stop. And I think there could be a lot of downside for companies that thought it would be a good idea to take all their production over to China, and get it built for $2 an hour while they can pollute all they want over in China. I think them getting in bed with with a totalitarian Chinese government, as Mary Barra in General Motors is doing. I think that they're going to find out exactly what could go wrong when you do that. Exactly. And I think we could end up. We don't have to buy things from China. Everybody says, "Oh, the tariffs are going to kill us." I'm not so sure. I think we can source things for it. World's a big place. It isn't just China. And here's a guy by the name of Bill Blaine who has a chart that shows, what exactly is happening with the imports. Here's where we have our riff here, okay? Right here. And this is a U.S. trade substitution away from China. Here is what the U.S. is doing away from China. Boing. Here is what's happening with China going down. You see that gap there? China is losing money hand over fist. We're not going to be importing as much stuff from China. Now, people like Walmart are going to take a big hit. The iPhone is going to be banned in China. Apple's going to take a big spanking. But these people did stupid things. They thought, oh, well, let's get things made for $2 an hour. We don't care if the government is a totalitarian communist regime that executes dissenters and hates Christians. And wow, what could go wrong if we get in bed with those kind of people? And they want, they want our intellectual property and 51% of every company we have over there, but we'll still make money. Well, maybe you did something kind of stupid. But I think that we can source from other places. I think that the economy's been not as good as what the president has been saying for a while. Although, listen, I'm not an anti-Trumper. I like Donald Trump. We would be in a full-blown depression if it wasn't for Donald Trump. Donald Trump has lessened the impact of what's going to happen. Number one, he did all this oil drilling. Please don't forget that. In a couple of short years, we went from being a net oil importer to a net oil exporter. Yes, I know we still do import some oil, but listen, what you cannot deny is this. We are drilling way more natural gas and oil than we did a couple of years ago, and that's going to cushion us. Why? Because it'll stop us from importing foreign oil and foreign gas, and those prices can rise uncontrollably, unbelievably. And if we are mostly energy self-sufficient, and reportedly we are an energy exporter, the nation is self-sufficient, but there are some people that argue with that. But listen, you can't argue with that. We're way better off in terms of energy production than we were a few years ago. I mean, we raised coal production exports by 71%. But yet the economy is tanking. And a lot of people look at the economy, look at the twos and the tens, the twos and the tens. I don't look at the twos and the tens. I look at, what can I get for my money today? What's 1 month money? You look at 1 month money. I did this last night. And, 1 month T-bill, 2.38%. Well, I'd like to lock up my money longer. Well, you'll lose money. For a 10-year treasury, it's 2.31%. Folks, that's yield curve inversion. That means bad things are coming down the pipe. Now, again, I'm not hoping that happens. We have a lot of debt. China also has a lot of debt. I had a commenter comment about China. This woman is somebody that is a former Wall Street professional. Because I wrote her and said, wow, that's a fantastic, I don't want to give her name or stuff like that, but I said, wow, it was a fantastic, you know who you are. It was a fantastic comment. Do you have, professional experience? Yes, and she told me she had Wall Street experience. Well, she just wrote another comment. She doesn't write very many comments, but boy, it was a good one. And she said, listen, don't underestimate the Chinese. Michael Pinto says they were $2 trillion in debt in 2000, and that went to $10 trillion in 2007. And from 2007 to now, 2019, that's $40 trillion. She says, listen, they grew they printed up money just like we printed up money. In the, like a Sun Tzu art of war type thing. They want to revalue all their debt that they phonied up as well. Now, China does have, 24, 25 1,000 tons of gold, but they don't have oil. They don't. They don't have energy. And they don't have a lot of food. And I'll get to that in just a minute. I got a mini farm report here, but I wanted to, but they don't have a lot of stuff. I mean, yes, they're holding on to 1.1 trillion in bonds. They could jack up interest rates. They could put on tariffs on what's left. I mean, we only import 100 billion, 150 billion into China max. I mean, there's only so much tariffs they could put on. Of course, our corporations have set up shop over there, and they could just boycott all of them. Kentucky Fried Chicken, McDonald's, all of them. They could just boycott them. They could just tell people, don't go in there. And, people will listen because, it's a repressive regime. So this could get super nasty, and I think it gets way, way nastier before it gets way, way better. But, who knows? We may not have First Amendment rights or press rights anymore. I hope the DOJ loses this case. As a journalist, DOJ accuses Assange of violating Espionage Act, 18 counts. Some people got it at 19 counts. It's one count they already had plus 18 more. Other people say that was involved in the count. It's a lot of counts. And let me just read along to you. Any government use of Espionage Act to criminalize the receipt and publication of classified information poses a dire threat to journalists seeking to publish such information in the public interest, irrespective of the Justice Department's assertion that Assange is not a journalist. Of course, he is a journalist. This, according to Bruce Brown, executive director of the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press. Actually, there are some people in the press still sticking their neck out. Julian Assange is one of them. The Espionage Act, I bet you doesn't include them getting information from the Russians for them hacking the DNC. That wasn't hacked. Bill Benny, his former NSA expert, has said, listen, the download speed is way too fast for that to be hacked through the internet. It'd be 4 times slower. You can tell how fast the information was downloaded. It was downloaded on an external hard drive or a thumb drive or something. This is talking about, Podesta and Hillary Clinton's emails and stuff like that. Or Podesta, I think, got caught in a phishing scam. But the Clinton emails. But I think this is horrible. Now, on the other side of the coin, if the DOJ is accusing Assange of violating the Espionage Act, wow, could that be used with the journalist that conspired to take down Donald Trump? Now, this isn't information for the public's knowledge. This is phony information. This is information being fed to the mainstream media that they knew or should have known was phony, that was not accurate, that was not true. And the reporters don't wag the dog. Listen, could the executives all the way up to the top at CNN, at MSNBC, at Washington Post, at the New York Times, could they be on the hook? Listen, when I was there, if I was doing a story about the President of the United States doing some crime or some alleged crime or something, believe me, my bosses all the way at the top of the corporation would know what I was doing. I didn't just do whatever I wanted to, walk on the set and deliver it and say, wow, well, how was that? That was a surprise, wasn't it? I never did that. So these people could be in trouble, but in that case, I tell you that they don't have an exemption for helping the FBI, rogue FBI and rogue DOJ and rogue CIA trying to kibosh with fraud and a hoax an incoming president of the United States. They don't have the right to do that. That's sedition and treason. Assange, I hope he gets off scot-free. I don't know exactly why they're doing this. There may be some alternative plan, ulterior motive. I know Donald Trump knows all about it. He must. There's not too much he doesn't miss. And you know about David Lind, the CIA, the Taliban, that spent the last 17 years in jail. He tried to keep him in jail. I mean, some of our people died because of this guy, Lind. And he said, I knew about him, and if I could keep him in jail, I would have done it. But we're going to be watching him. But all that to say that, this whole thing is heating up, folks. We live in a very interesting time. And this is historic. And, this is going to be something. I wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on with the farmers. Now, today in this press conference, he did talk about the farmers getting $16 billion and saying that China's attacking them. But that's not the farmers' big problem. The farmers' big problem right now is weather. I told you about how horrible it was in Illinois where there's nothing planted. I mean, supposedly they have more stuff planted, but they just got more rain all through big swaths of the Midwest. Um, and if you take a look at this right here, the U.S. corn planting is way behind, says the USDA. Less than half of the corn is in the ground. It's like 47%. It's usually like 80% right now. This is agriculture.com. U.S. soybean planting completion rate 19% versus 47% on a 5-year average. I think Illinois now is up to maybe 24%. They usually have 80% planted in corn this time of year. Listen, we get in too late, and A, you won't be able to get insurance, and B, you may not have enough time to grow your crop. I mean, I was talking to one friend of mine. He says, I just barely, I was out there and I was coming back late from dinner. They're out there with tractors on, daytime. Yeah, you could see 150, 200 yards down the field. Big areas are down there disking and planting and trying to get stuff in, working all night long. My friend, who's a professional farmer, said he got about 100 acres in. He said, but it was already wet, and he has pretty high ground. And he says, already wet, and then we got 4 inches of rain in 2 days, which, you can get too much rain. And again, all the river bottoms, the fertile ground in all the river bottoms up and down the Missouri, the Mississippi, in some cases the Ohio, all that ground, they may not get any of that planted. And some of these farms this is millions of acres of flat, fertile river bottom farm ground that they expect to flood in the spring, but by now they can get a crop in. And it looks like we have a little bit more time for beans than corn. But you may get in a situation where we're not going to get any near record-breaking crops this year. I think we'll get record-breaking prices because of how late everything is in. I mean, right now the river bottoms, in the St. Louis, Mississippi, Missouri area. I mean, if it stopped raining today, of course it's still filling up because they got 4 inches of rain here in the last couple of days this week. If it stopped raining today, they wouldn't get in there for a month. End of June. You're talking likely it'd be very risky to even plant anything. It costs money to plant. The seeds aren't free. This stuff is expensive. So I am forecasting right now much higher prices. I'm not saying Armageddon famine, everybody's going to die and starve, but I'm saying that there is no way that we're going to even get close to any sort of plum year in crops. Plum year in prices, yeah, probably. But I think the crop productions could be, way down. And that's the biggest problem the farmers are facing. And Michael Snyder, who has the Economic Collapse blog and I think the End of American Dream blog, smart guy, bright guy, put together a piece about how, drought and floods are happening around the world and could higher food prices be on their way. And, I think yes. Yes, higher food prices could be on the way, but things are not good at all. And this is on top of, and I keep talking about Illinois. It's some of the best farm ground, not just in the country, in the world. Illinois, flat, beautiful, dark brown, lovely. But the state is in a financial mess. I mean, they want to raise $40-something billion, and taxes on everything's going to go up. And people are going to be in a full-blown tax revolt there. On top of that, you have, a pretty good percentage of the crop that either can't be planted, or is planted so late that it doesn't grow very well, or it fails, or we could, ricochet around by July, we could be in a drought. They could get their seeds in the ground, not get near to the water that they need. Or they could just keep getting flooded all year long, and that in and of itself is too much water. You would think, how can you get too much water? Oh, that happens easy. So, the crop problem is a real problem. And, and it's not China. I mean, China, if it gets bad enough, trust me, they'll buy food to feed their starving people from anywhere. The problem is going to be shortages and problems planting and prices going much higher than they are today. Donald Trump also in his little impromptu press conference talked about Iran. Mike Pompeo said Iran is still a threat. They're on high alert. They have real, incredible evidence that Iran could attack American interests in the Middle East. The president talked about Iran, talking about their inflation again, that it's sky high, that he pulled out of the Iran deal. He actually slipped up and said, the deal Obama signed Obama didn't sign that deal. I'm sorry, he didn't sign it. They voted on it on the UN, but they didn't sign it. It was no treaty, and according to the Kerry State Department, it was not signed. The threat's real, and they're still on high alert. And they talked about the 10,000 troops that May send to the Middle East. The president said, "Listen, I haven't ruled on that yet. If we need them, we'll send them. Right now, I'm not planning on sending them." That was in his press conference, and I thought that was a cool-headed thing to say. And again, I got to tell you, the press was very respectful. Not this stupid nana poo-poo, stick your head in doo-doo, Jim Acosta, I'm going to debate you about stupid things. They were asking actually good questions. And boy, they got quiet about when he started saying treason. The insurance policy. The insurance policy to knock a president out of office, a duly elected president out of office, that's treason. Treason. He said it twice. And so, folks, get ready because, we have a couple of huge thunderstorms of geopolitical and financial that are going to bump into each other. And one last thing I wanted to bring up is this. This is in USA Today. Who cares about all the crazy laws and all the crime that comes along with the liberal policies, like all the homeless and in California and Los Angeles and San Francisco, and all the excrement on the street, and all the rich people not wanting any of the homeless shelters by their houses, and they want to do all this largeness and all this illegal immigration. And Newsom is up now. He's going to raise tens of millions of dollars to give medical benefits to illegal aliens, and they're going to get that from tax-paying, hard-working Americans in California. Newsom, the governor. So here's yet another little deal they're doing, that California is now may limit police gun use. Yeah, they're going to create all these problems, and then, hey, they're going to blame it on the cops. They're going to create all of these social problems, and they're going to make it harder than ever for police to defend themselves. They've changed the standard from reasonable, as defined by the Supreme Court's Graham versus Connor ruling in 1989, to necessary. Was that necessary? Couldn't you have wrestled around on the ground with him? Could you have pepper sprayed him while he was shooting at you with your .45? Did you have to shoot him and kill him? And listen, the cops aren't perfect people, but the Democrats can't create giant social chaos and mess and squalor and lawlessness where they allow people to break into cars, for example, in San Francisco, and we're not going to prosecute you. That's a petty crime. They can't create an environment of lawlessness and then blame it on the cops. And that's the way they're looking like they're going to. That's what they're looking like they're going to do. That's what they've done. That's the way they've chosen. And now I pity the police officers in California or any other liberal crazy town where they create this environment of crime and lawlessness. And then when the police crack down and try to enforce the laws, you were too rough. You should go to jail. That's outrageous. And you know what happens then? Then the police go, okay, all right. I'm not going to go to jail to enforce the law. If you don't have my back, let it go. That's what's going on in Baltimore. Look what's going on in Chicago. Look what's going on in every liberal Shangri-La in the country. Unlivable, filthy, lawless, crazy. And then what do? The first people they crack down? The cops. So they curry favor with their voters. So listen, folks, we have some big, bad problems coming down the pipe. I don't want you to be fearful. That's why the Democrats are so erratic and crazy, and they're making up anything to see if whatever they say can stick. Trump's deranged, Trump's crazy, he should have an intervention, we want his tax records, he committed a crime, he should be impeached. What's coming is real investigation with real consequences and real people being arrested and prosecuted for treason and sedition and obstruction of justice and multitudes of other crimes. And as I've always said, you got to ask yourself, what would make people break law after law, commit treason, commit sedition, commit obstruction of justice, commit all kinds of crimes. What would make them do that other than that they were so up to their neck in crimes they've already committed? What's a few more crimes? What's a few more felonies for all the stuff that's going to be revealed by a legitimate Justice Department and FBI and president who's going to try to drain the swamp? And so that's the deal. So hang on, folks. My weekly, early Sunday release. I've been talking with Bo Pony on the phone, pretty much. And he's had some big calls he's been right on. He called the low at 1045 on gold back in 2015. Many people were saying, oh, it's going to go to 600 or 700 or 200 or whatever crazy number. And he called it. Now, he's missed on gold going way up for the moment. But I think he's got the bottom, and I think he's going to get the top. I think he's going to get this right. The intervention in between is, absolutely crazy and lawless. We know there's tons of illegal manipulation, intervention, and rigging of all the markets, all of them. And so, he's going to be my guest for the early Sunday release. He's going to explain his gold calls, but he's killed it on things like Bitcoin, on the stock market. He came on in November, the election night 2018, midterm election night, and said, going to sell into the fall, not going to be a Santa Claus rally. And everybody else is saying, oh, Santa Claus rally. He got that right too. He's right way more than he's wrong. And he puts it on video, and he has it in his out to his subscribers. But I digress. We're going to talk to Bo Pony. He's going to talk about gold, silver, Bitcoin, the bond market, the stock market, Donald Trump, his chances of being reelected. We're going to talk a lot with analyst Bo Pony. And for that, folks, I'm telling you, fear not. Prepare yourself mentally, physically, above all, spiritually. Fear not. God the Father and His Son, Jesus Christ, are firmly in control.